audio.
No. Just let it do its thing. That's cool. I didn't know it was. I've watched podcasts like this before. I never knew how it actually what the logic was. I always thought maybe it was like whoever's speaking it took that microphone, put it center square.
I think Skype used to do that.
Skype,
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so it can be like that with this too, but if you click like off of the group, off of a person's face, it puts the whole group up, and it looks nice.
Oh, okay, cool. Nice.
Beautiful.
Also, hello, sir. I haven't been able to hear you.
Hola.
Thank you for being here.
Thank God, because I've been writing your obituary because all that vaping going on in the upper corner there. It's like a fucking Cheech and Chong movie up there. So
Well, I try to make it look cool.
Good for you.
Cool.
Now I'm not muted.
Now
There
you're
we go.
not muted. Well, what's up, everybody in stream and everyone here? It's another episode of Bounty Board, and this week we have a super special guest. I'll let him introduce himself, but just above me on camera, if you're watching the stream, is the one and only David Jaffe. How's it going, man?
It's going good. How are you down there? This is fun. It's like it's the Brady Bunch. It's
Hollywood Squares.
I'm gonna spit down there and you open your mouth and catch it.
Oh Jesus!
One of these days we need to actually have someone in the same room so I can pull them from their frame into mine.
That would be great. Well, thank you guys for having me. I'm sorry I'm running late, but it's nice to be here. Thank you very much.
No,
We're
absolutely.
actually 5 minutes earlier than we usually are, so
well, there
it
you
all
go.
works.
Yeah, we say 10 and then we start on time.
Yeah.
30 minutes
And
later.
you guys are Central Time Zone, right?
Correct.
We are, yes.
Where are you?
Two of us are in St. Louis.
Okay.
Myself and Sketch, who you've spoken to.
Yep.
Sergeant Sodium in the middle is in Springfield, Illinois.
Okay.
And Eric Glass, our good friend up in the top, is from the Lone Star State.
Gotcha. Okay. Excellent.
Yes,
Good to
yes.
know. I always grew up with the Central Time Zone. I grew up in Alabama, so I was always having to do the math when it's like, it's the Great Pumpkin, Charlie Brown at 9 o'clock and 6 o'clock Central, and I'm like, wait, what is that? When is that coming on? So I'm old. We didn't have TV on demand back then. You had to actually be in front of the TV when it started. So, anyway.
Sure. I had to argue with someone the other day that Mountain Time was a thing. They didn't believe me.
Absolutely, it's a thing. It's
They were like, it
goes
never says
there.
it on TV.
That's
No,
really
it's
embarrassing.
Pacific, Mountain, Central, and East Coast, right?
That's right.
Yeah,
Yep.
They didn't believe me at all. I was like, no, there's
What
nothing
is,
there.
what is Alaska though? What does Alaska get? Because they're not Pacific.
No.
It's like that weird time zone in Maine, right? It's like the very tip of Maine has that
And-
other Atlantic time zone.
Hawaii's the same thing. Hawaii's like an hour or two ahead or behind. So
Shoot,
I don't know what they call
Alaska's
it.
got its own time zone. It's called Alaska Daylight Time.
Oh, well, there you go.
That's awesome.
that?
If you live in Alaska, you deserve your own fucking time zone. Don't you think?
Yes.
You do.
I
You don't
agree
have
with
anything else that everybody else has, so
It's
you
like,
at least
thank-
deserve that.
Thank you for your service. You get a time zone. Everybody gets a time.
They have to airlift you Taco Bell. Have a time zone.
There you go. That's exactly right.
I have to interrupt real quick though. David, we grew up in Alabama as well. Are you familiar with Lake Martin?
Of course, we used to go out on Lake Martin with the boat.
Oh my god!
Holy shit!
Yeah, absolutely.
We have like 2 or 3 family lake houses on Lake Martin, and we've
My-
also been out on a boat.
My uncle had a lake house out there, and I'll never forget the day that my brother-in-law pulled a water moccasin from Lake Martin when we were fishing, and I'm like, I'm never going back in that lake. And I never did.
No, thank you.
Motherfucker,
Nope.
biggest fucking thing. I was horrifying.
Yeah,
But yeah,
how
I
about those
miss,
4th of Julys though? Insane.
I never had a 4th of July on the lake. I was in Birmingham, and we always just kind of did it there, and we bought fireworks at Crazy Bill Fireworks, which they still have Crazy Bill Fireworks, but you can't get them out here in California. So every 4th of July and New Year's, I see online people are going to those. Crazy Bill has the trailers where you go in and you get these amazing fireworks. And I'm just super jealous because we don't even get to buy sparklers in California. We get nothing because it's a fire hazard. Yeah,
Right.
so.
Yeah, we went to Colorado for
Fucking
4th of July.
social justice warriors taking away our fucking sparklers.
Yeah, I spent like $500 on fireworks this year and blew them all in one night.
You buy the big bag, like the giant bag or the giant box of like.
Oh no, I spend like 3 hours in the superstore buying fireworks because I pick specific things out the whole time.
He has a culture.
It's like
he has
my
a
Walmart.
culture.
Yeah, that's right,
firework
that's right.
taste.
Ryan and I have very defined palates when it comes to explosions.
I understand. Oh, I understand. I used to make movies as a kid, and the greatest thing I ever discovered was 2 things: was Magician's flash paper, which I don't know if you've ever played with flash paper, but that basically is a little sheet of tissue paper, and you light it, and it instantly goes like a fireball. And then if you would take bottle rockets and you would bury those under the ground and you'd pack them tight with dirt, but you'd leave the fuse coming out of the ground and you'd light it, you'd get this kind of Vietnam kind of like boom coming out of the ground, like it was like napalm hits. It was, and you put your Star Wars characters on it and you filmed it in slow motion, and it was fucking great. It was fucking great.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Man, I played with fireworks, but I only ever got in trouble with them. I remember one time I fired a bottle rocket through a car window as it was passing. Yeah, that wasn't good.
Wait a minute. It went in one side, but it blew up in the car, right? Because the car was moving.
Yeah. So like it went in, and like you saw it bounce into the back seat and pop, and then it was like skirt, and we like fucking booked.
and then like there was a beat, and you just heard this baby start crying. You're like, oh shit, you know. That's the best one I ever had was they made those tanks that look like World War II Sherman tanks.
Yeah, I remember those.
But they had the bottle rocket. And we were filming those all over the backyard. And one day that fucking bottle rocket just shot out of the tank and came right at my eye. And it was like the Matrix. I just kind of moved a little bit and that thing just went whistling. And I mean, within an inch of my fucking eyeball. It was fun. Fun times in Bama for sure.
We were almost Big Boss.
That's right.
Did you go buy lotto tickets after that?
We didn't have that back then.
Wait,
we didn't have. I was I grew up in Alabama from like 71 to 89. So this was back when stores weren't even allowed to be open on Sunday. Because God doesn't want you to shop. So
don't say that at Christmas time. People will kill you.
Well, I know. And then the religious right was like,
tweet.
Yeah. And then the religious light was like, wait a minute. We're capitalists? We're Republican? Oh shit, shop. Open the fucking stores. It's like, what do we do? So they went with the money. They took the money.
Yeah, that's what you do. Okay, so we normally start the podcast by asking how everyone's week has been, but I think we've had some pretty playful banter to get it started. So we don't bore you, Mr. Jaffe, we've curated a small list of news, and we'll sprint through it pretty quickly.
Okay.
The first item being that Game Pass October titles have been announced by Xbox. I'll run through them real quick. If you want to find out dates, there'll be a link in the show notes. We're getting Dishonored 2. We're getting World War Z. We're getting a Panzer Dragoon game. We're getting Felix the Reaper. And we're getting Yuka and Laylee.
That looks like the original Panzer Dragoon, too.
It has the Sega logo on it. So
not original. Yeah. The Xbox original. Not.
Yeah, I think it is.
Yeah.
That's the last one I remember.
Yep. Which looks.
And I probably
really
will
awesome.
play World War Z now that it's free.
Yep.
That looks awesome.
The Division with zombies.
It's basically just a horde mode, right?
Yeah, very Left 4 Dead sort of.
It's Left 4 Dead and the Division having a undead baby.
Nice,
okay.
Perfect.
I'm glad you threw undead in there.
I mean,
I'm also
a
little humiliated. I didn't get to play Dishonored 2 when it was fresh, so I'll have to work my way through that.
Don't feel bad. I've not played any of the Dishonoreds, so
you're good.
There you go.
I know they are. They seem like games I would totally be into, but I just priorities.
Know anything about Felix the Reaper?
I don't. I've seen some stuff, but I haven't ever played it. The next thing from Polygon, Untitled Goose Game, which if you haven't heard of this game, it's bananas.
Never heard of it.
Everybody's talking about it.
It is the best-selling game on Switch right now. The best comparison that I've heard was from Austin Walker over on Waypoint, who said that Untitled Goose Game, without giving you any prompts but giving you a few objectives, feels like a Hitman game. In that you're a goose, you can do like 4 things, and you have these objectives, and you have to solve how to do all of these things while you run around and can just like honk at people.
Yeah. I watched Dashy play it for about an hour. It looked freaking amazing.
Sure.
And what an honor, man. Talking about a small dev team sitting up on the bestseller list next to Zelda Link's Awakening. What a privilege.
Like,
holy crap.
that was it 4 people on that dev team? I think
know.
that's what it said in the article is 4 people. Good lord.
How cool is that?
Yeah, that's dope. My phone just decided to stop working. So Rocket League's moving to blueprints from Kotaku. I'm sure, Ryan, you've looked into this and have some opinions. We play a lot of Rocket League, but they're going away from, and this is probably because they're owned and not owned, but being published by Epic now, who has oodles of money.
They are owned by Epic.
They're owned by Epic now? They bought them?
Yeah.
All right.
Epic.
There you go. So, yeah, they're moving away from the microtransaction buy keys to unlock the crates you earn model, because I'm sure the publisher I just said Epic. I'm sure
Epic.
Epic was like, you don't need to worry about that. And so
Right.
they're moving away from that and into blueprints. Ryan, you've probably read up on it. What do you think about this?
I mean, I think it's a good idea, and the way and what they said in the article, and I don't like the way that they worded it, for the fact that they were like, yeah, you get these crates and then you have to buy keys. Well, technically, you don't have to buy keys, because they allow you to have these things called decryptors that you unlock also, and you can use those to open the crates with it. So you can choose to, or you can wait till you unlock a decryptor and then
Sure.
open it. So it's not forcing you to only buy keys. They
They're
used to
also
do that.
all
but not
cosmetic.
anymore.
They're also all
Right.
cosmetic. So like,
Right.
you don't need any of it.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
all cosmetic. There's no play to win feature with it, so it's not really doing anything for you. Like the best car that has the best hitbox is already a free car in the game, and everybody uses that one anyway. But I like the blueprints because it gives you the option to pay for them. Like, you don't have to pay for them, but at the same time, it's still just like in the article they were like, "Oh yeah, we're just getting rid of a loot box just to throw out a brand new loot box for you, because you're gonna get one of these and you're gonna want to buy it, so you're gonna have to buy it anyway." So is it
It's
better
very
to spend more money on the blueprint to unlock, or is it better to spend money on a dollar key to unlock a crate?
To unlock something mystery, right?
But at least, yeah. But the blueprint gives you a guaranteed you're getting
yeah,
this.
you know what you're buying.
So-
I like
yeah.
that.
Panda brought it up. It's very similar to the Save the World system, which is, so for you guys who don't know, what Fortnite was before it was a battle royale. There was a single player game
Sure.
that existed for all of 10 minutes, and then battle royale came out, and that overrode it. So
Yeah.
thanks for that, Panda.
Yeah, for sure. All right, and then the last news thing, which I think may transition into our topic, just because we have some Sony experience here. Shawn Layden, Sony Interactive Entertainment's chairman, I guess. Is that what it says?
That guy.
Yeah.
I'm only laughing because you have a picture of Phil Spencer in the notes.
Oh,
So-
that's an auto link thing. I don't
That's,
know.
that's an
Oh,
auto
okay.
link. Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
like, did he leave too? Okay.
So he's a worldwide studio chairman.
Worldwide Studios chairman. Yes. So this is weird, and maybe there's a little conversation that can come from this, but Sony 2 days ago tweeted at 6 p.m., which is a weird time. It's with great emotion that we say goodbye to worldwide chairman Shawn Layden. Thank you for, like, it was really platonic, and like, thank you for your years of service and good luck on your future endeavors. Peace. And there's been no press release from Sony yet. And the links that I kept finding kept saying that like there's some leadership churn and like power struggles, and the fact that they didn't at him in the tweet and that he hasn't really said
They
anything.
fired him.
Like, if he was like looking at going to a competitor and they found out, that's not like a 2 weeks thing. That's like a cool, thanks, bye. So maybe that's what happened, but there's been a severe lack of communication on both ends in that. But it's interesting, so keep your eyes peeled, because Sony's in the process of getting ready to unveil PS5 at some point in the next probably 6 months, 5 months, 4 months, 3 months, who knows?
Any speculation in there, David?
It's probably. Well, I think they're unveiling PS5 in February. I think that's kind of the plan. They that's what they did on PS4. But
That's super late.
for what?
Xbox hasn't announced yet.
Compared to Xbox.
Xbox
is already. Yeah, well, no, they're not fully
I mean,
announced, but like they dropped stuff at
They're
E3.
talking, sure.
Yeah, but the
Yeah.
the E3 Scarlet reveal was blink. I mean, it was. I liked the E3 press conference for Xbox, and I'm a huge Game Pass fan. I have Game Pass on PC. I almost went and bought an Xbox One X because the games on Game Pass for console are actually, even though the PC games are awesome, you get more games on the
Right.
console side. But then I'm like, fuck it, I'll wait for Scarlet. But I mean, I thought the Scarlet reveal, such as it was fine. But I mean, they almost showed nothing for
Right.
that box. It really wasn't much of a reveal. So they're gonna go back and do another reveal proper anyway. So I don't think February is necessarily too late. I mean, I could be wrong, but that's sort of what the rumor is. But as for Shawn leaving, I mean, unless he comes out and says something, or in 5-10 years somebody writes a tell-all book about Sony PlayStation, you're never really going to know. And I say that from experience because there have been some high profile people that have left Sony over the years when I was both at Sony and I was sort of working with Sony as an external developer. And I was aware of what the politics behind the exit was. And these were high profile people that all the podcasts and news services were talking about and speculating about. And to this day, no one knows why these people really left except people who were on the inside. So, I mean, there's a million things. It could be, you know, on the awful, terrible, worst case side, it could be a health scare. You know, something happened where he's like, fuck it, I'm out. Or he could have had a nervous breakdown. Or him and Jim Ryan, who runs, I think was his boss, or Parallel in the structure. They, you know, a lot of speculation says that they're, you know, at odds throughout the years. So, you know, Sony's Christmas is horrible this coming Christmas in terms of releases. And so maybe the chickens came home to roost and they blamed Shawn, even though, I mean, Sony's been firing on all cylinders on most of their first party games, but maybe somebody got a bee in their bonnet about the Christmas releases. So it's impossible to really know. The only thing you really can say is that was a very unusual tweet. That was a very unusual way to do it for someone so not just high up in the company, but so public facing. Like, you remember when Reggie left Nintendo, you know, we knew for months, but we knew for like 3 months, 6 months that Reggie was going to leave. Bob Iger, who runs Disney, is going to leave Disney in 2021 or 22. He was going to leave this year, but the Fox deal happened, but people knew that a year in advance. The fact that suddenly out of nowhere on a Monday afternoon, Sony's like, see you, Shawn. There's something there, but there's, you know, we can speculate because it's fun, but there's no real way to have any fucking clue, you know, what the reason is. No idea.
Sleeper prediction. He's going to show up at XO19 on Xbox's stage and be like, yo, what's up?
He may have gone to them and said, Xbox offered me, you know, $1 million more on my contract and back end. Can you guys, you know, I mean, I'm just making this shit up. I don't know, but he could have. And then Sony could have said, well, we're not going to match that, but we'll show you where the door is. Who knows? Who knows? All I know is I've known Shawn. I've worked with Shawn in limited capacity, but every single time I've worked with him, he's been a stand-up, nice, incredibly warm fella. I like him. I have no ill will towards him. I hope he's doing okay. I on my stream yesterday talked about what it must be like, assuming that this did come out of nowhere. What must that be like to be Shawn Layden, who for the last X years has been one of the top of the food chain at this massive organization that has huge influence all over the world, where you've got assistants and people are hanging on every word and people can't move forward with projects without you. And then you wake up on a random Tuesday, you have nowhere to be, and you're just like, oh, I'm just this guy now. I mean, what is that psychologically like? I find fascinating, and I'm sure he's fine. I'm sure the guy's got a bank account, you know, that won't quit, but I don't think he's worried about that. But just, that's a fucking shift, man. That's a real mental shift that 60 or 100 to 0 in seconds flat. So that's what I'm fascinated by when something like this happens.
For sure.
But I don't know.
Yeah, that was definitely the first thing I thought of too, was like, man, this is quick and not the way it normally goes. But yeah, like you said, there's very likely 0% chance that we'll find out what actually happened. But who knows? Who knows? Jason Schreier's good at getting good articles put together from people that want to talk. So who knows?
He's good at publishing information that's private, that's no one's business. But but he's fine cashing a paycheck based on sort of, you know, taking information that's not really his and sharing it and calling it news.
Wow.
Although some of the stuff he's done has been great. I liked what he did with like Riot. I think he's genuinely a pretty good investigative reporter, but it's a fine line between investigative reporting that is genuinely for the sort of the public good, like the Riot story I thought was great. And then just like, hey, I've got some dirt because I'm good at my job. And for 99% of the population, that's entertainment. And I'm going to publish it under the guise of news when we fucking know it's fucking Star Magazine, Us Magazine, National Enquirer fucking gossip. And that's kind of shitty. But
yeah. The Anthem piece had way too many proper nouns in it. I was like, why are there so many names in this? That like
I haven't read it. I didn't read it. What was it about?
So when Anthem came out about a month after in March, there was an article that was basically about all of the development struggles that BioWare encountered while making Anthem. and it drew from his article on Mass Effect Andromeda and like their struggles with DICE as an engine not being built for RPGs, let alone third-person things, let alone things with saves and stuff like that. But it also had a lot of employee testimony throwing people under the bus and like using first and last names.
Yeah.
And BioWare's response to that, which at first I was like, yeesh, bad response. But their response was like, we don't talk about our own people like that. So like, why would you? Ugh. And so now like I've learned over time, like, eesh, that might not have been the most reserved way to approach that.
Yeah, I mean, it's fun to talk about this shit, but if you're actually an investigative reporter and you've got sources and tools and you're willing to do that, it's what? Hey, man, everybody's got their list of things that
it could backfire though, right? Like people are going to stop talking to him because
no, but because every game company has a group of people on it, even the ones that are the most successful games in the world, that think they could have done it better, and they get upset with the management, and the management's stupid and everyone's an idiot but them. And certainly someone comes calling and says, we want to hear your side of the story. It's like, oh, finally, hubbub, I get to so there's always going to be those people that are willing to sort of throw their colleagues under the bus because they feel they weren't heard on the project, which is fair. I mean, that might be a sign of bad management on the project, but end of the day though, it's probably not very good form. It is what it is. Everybody, like I said, everybody's got their list of things that are acceptable. Mine are no better than anyone else's. It's just sort of what I think.
Yep.
Sure. So that's it for the news. Honestly, like I didn't want to be laborious with it and like go through 10 things because you can ask the guys on here, David. I'm pretty good at throwing 10 news items in and half the people being like, "Hey, can we move on?" So
it's hard. It's how often do you guys do your podcast?
We do it once a week.
Once a week.
Well, look, I've been doing a stream podcast, whatever the fuck it is, and I try to do it every day. For a while I was doing it every day, but when you try to do it every day with game news, it is fucking hard, man. It is hard to find stuff to talk about. That a lot of times I'm just like tomorrow I'm doing my stream. I'm not even talking about games tomorrow. I'm like, you know what? There's nothing in the news. We're talking about weird shit people found on Google Earth. I mean, it's just what are you gonna do?
Sure.
But the one thing you glossed over though that I did think was fascinating about Untitled Goose Game is the last line in that article that you linked us to, which was talking about how there's a lot of people out there that are sort of shouting for the Goose to be in Smash Brothers as DLC. I think that would be brilliant. That would be brilliant.
Yeah, it would be incredible.
Yeah,
they have some useless characters on that game, and that would be one of the most useless ones.
No, it would be great if that one was totally OP and everybody
I want the honk. I want the honk to throw people off the screen. Yeah. Honk, douche, just gone.
Yeah.
What was it? Blizzard said today that they would gladly put any of their characters in Smash. I can't remember. If it was, they were saying that Nintendo can have any of our characters for Smash, and I was like,
"That's incredible."
Okay.
Okay.
There we go.
Yeah.
I'm going to need a Terran. I'm going to need a Zerg. I'm going to need a Proteus. I'm going to need a Reinhardt. Let's do it.
Soldier 76.
Soldier 76.
Black Widow. Let's go. Or Widowmaker.
I wasn't even going to correct you because
it's fine.
They're the same
They're
person.
same character.
They're the same person.
Right.
Yeah. One's French, one's Russian. Okay, so on to the main topic. I thought that this last news piece might lead into it, but I'm not very good at transitions, so fuck it. This is something that's kind of been in the news, not super recently, but definitely over the last few years, as social media has been one of the loudest voices that exists, a multitude of voices, legion, if you will. There's this thing happening where game design, in some ways, has been impacted by fan outrage or just loud fans saying this needs to be changed. Whether it's outraged or not is kind of unimportant, kind of not unimportant. But we wanted to talk about is unified vision the goal or is crowdsourcing the goal? And is there a place for both of these things? Should they be together? Can you have unified vision while also going to the public for their feedback? And we thought that you would probably, Mr. Jaffe, be a great person to have talk about that because you've probably interacted with
couple of them.
no small number of public.
Well, I kind of wanted to start with the fact that all games were designed before the internet didn't have any public feedback.
Zero.
I would be curious to know if any game was designed around the BBC message boards, with some sort of interaction. The only other thing I could think of is games that maybe were released sequentially, like episodically. And
we had play tests, so we certainly got user feedback, which was incredibly valuable.
Yeah.
I mean, we threw open the doors constantly on games before the internet was a big thing, having people come in and say, what do you think? I remember on the first God of War, the internet had been around, but it wasn't as what it is now.
Sure.
There was like one message board, and people, there was. I mean,
it was the internet. It was a
place. Exactly. The information superhighway, if I remember, is what it was called. And I would literally take home, and this is how long ago it was, video cassettes of the play tests of people going through God of War. And I would sit there on my couch in Santa Monica with a notebook and just watch second by second. Oh, he's getting stuck on that ledge, or this puzzle's too hard, or we need a light over there in the background because that's going to draw his eye because people keep getting stuck and walking by the doorway. Let's light that up. So you're always looking for that kind of feedback, even before there was the internet, for sure. As for now, I think it absolutely depends on the game. I think if you're talking about a game that is single player, story based, intending to sort of really express a key idea, the public's involvement really needs to start and stop at the playtest level in terms of where are you getting stuck, what are you confused about, but the vision is coming from the team or a group of people or an individual on the team. And if you start fucking with that, I think it's a huge mistake. Sure. But if you're talking about multiplayer games or more gamey games, then I think you fucking get all the feedback you can, because those games are really more about mechanics, and those are, you got to see what works and what doesn't work. You got to see what's balanced and what's not balanced. And a lot of times you make assumptions about things and you get close to a game being on the development team. I mean, hell, you guys were talking about Rocket League. You listen to the Psyonix guys talk about Rocket League, and they'll tell you, they're like, shit, we had no idea people were going to be doing with the vehicles what they're doing with the vehicles in this fucking ball. And so that is stuff that kind of game, I think you absolutely, the more the merrier, as long as you've got some kind of healthy filter. I think it becomes very dangerous when you've got the development team themselves going online and, what you guys talking, I have a lot to say about this topic, but you guys go, I'll come back to it. But that's what I say.
I think it's interesting to your example, like Gearbox is running into that with Borderlands right now, is there was no public playtest and they made assumptions about how the characters are working, and now they're having to go back and they just released a hotfix that totally changed a couple of the mechanics with the characters, because Zane, who I absolutely adore playing, was so underpowered until this latest hotfix.
Oh, and he's now glass too.
Yeah, and he was a glass can, and fitting for my stream and name, but whatever. And then Flak was just so incredibly overpowered, and I don't think, as close as they are to that game and as much hype as there was around it, I just don't think they would have ever seen it, because that's the way they were there. So,
yeah, I was thinking about this when I was like preparing for the show, like while the stream was gearing up and music was playing. I was like, I wonder, because I realized that all the games I've heard or seen a lot of public interaction or feedback happening, it's always a multiplayer stuff. And so, David, you made a good point. Like single player stuff, that doesn't really. There's no feedback I think anyone's gonna give Naughty Dog.
No,
that's gonna change their mind.
That may be true, but I mean, the most famous one is like Mass Effect 3. Certainly, there was
yep. He brought it up, not me. I didn't do
it. So whatever. I mean, the public isn't always wrong. I mean, look, just because they bring something up and it's not part of the original vision, maybe the guys on Mass Effect 3 were like, "Fuck it, these guys are right. Our endings are shit." I don't know. I didn't play it. But for me, like, I'm looking at your poster in the background there that has like Control up there. The last thing in the world I would want would be the public to get involved in fucking around with Control and going, well, I don't really like that she's a redhead. And could you give her an axe? I mean, just crazy shit. And, when you sit in a real life focus test, and it's usually real life people around a table, the people who run those focus tests are professional, and they are trained to recognize kind of the alphas in the group, because the alphas in the group can really sway the conversation. And you really almost have to have this kind of totally germ-free, metaphorical germ-free environment. You can't have a moderator of the opposite sex, or I guess the same sex, but you don't want your moderator being too attractive. You don't want your moderator dressing in any way except very bland. You don't want the alphas to be controlling the group. Because you're trying to get as pure information as you can, and all of those things will affect it. So when you take that and you put it online, and you've got like the alpha on NeoGAF, or you've got the alpha on Reset Era or Reddit, and suddenly everyone's like, yeah, fuck it, I like what Night Panda says. Night Panda's a badass. Fuck it, yeah. And suddenly you've got changes in the game, and the development team is taking this data in and going, well, fuck it. Reset Era says we should do this, or NeoGAF says we should do that. So you have to be careful of it, but when it comes to single player games, though, I would kind of stay away from that stuff. I think that's dangerous. I think, look, a lot of times you want to tell the public, it's like, fuck you. You want to design a game? Go fuck design a game.
Yes.
There's Unity, there's Unreal Engine, there's Game Maker, there's Dreams. There's a million fucking options for you, pal. Go fucking make your own fucking game. Sit down and shut the fuck up. That's what you want to say a lot of times. Not because you're being a dick, not because you don't appreciate the passion, but it's like, dude, we're not short order cooks. This is not Denny's, and you're asking for a grilled cheese sandwich, but you want mayonnaise on it with the side of mustard. This is what it is. You like it, you don't. That's fucking fine. I see your face responding to that order. That's what I'm saying. That's the equivalent. That's the equivalent. But what I was going to say though is there was a guy on the Call of Duty dev team that came out last week, and he was talking about, he did a tweet or something saying, you know what? Game community, we're human. We read these message boards. We read these subreddits. Right?
Yeah.
Could you guys kind of take it easy? And in my mind, I was just going, dude, look, what I was going to say earlier is when I first started at Sony, they sent me to media training. And I thought a lot of it was bullshit, where it was like, it was the first time I was going to go off in front of the press and pitch a game. And a lot of it was like this, whatever. But it was kind of, most of the executives took it seriously. And it's like, here are the things you can say. Here's how you say something. They'll try to knock you off your point. Here's how you pivot back to your point, whatever. I think these days development teams need like social media training. They need, and I don't just mean don't go online and post, but it's like, you're not going to stop these guys on Reddit or NeoGAF or Reset Era. You can go to your own official forums and police it. But it's like, if you go out into the wilderness that is the video game culture and the internet, and you're reading about your game and you don't really know how to do that, it can absolutely fuck you up. It can absolutely fuck you up. And so you either have to be savvy about really processing what's coming into you and going, okay, wait a minute, what am I really take from this comment here? Right. And what is just bullshit that I should just sort of prune off the tree and not worry about it? I think so. That guy who was asking that on the Call of Duty team, I'm like, dude, it's literally like walking down an alley in a shitty neighborhood at night, wearing fancy clothes and carrying brand new boxes from a department store. And you're like, I don't know why I got robbed. It's like, yeah, you shouldn't have gotten robbed. You're absolutely right. But you know what? You're a fucking moron. You're a fucking moron. So.
Oh man! So at E3, there was a big one, a big instance of this. I think when Square Enix and Crystal Dynamics showed off their Marvel's Avengers game, the immediate backlash for how it looked and how it seemed to play was loud and numerous. And one of the things that I've noticed since they've shown the game,
the Star Wars game too, the Jedi game.
Yep.
Yeah, that's weird though, because they didn't show that. They didn't show the game well. Star Wars.
They did. The Greg Miller thing did not show well.
Right.
But the preview on the Xbox E3, I thought, was a totally different trailer, which I thought was a good trailer.
Yeah.
If they had done that with the Greg Miller thing, completely different. The Greg Miller thing was like a guy who was super good at the game, running through it, not and every person just kind of like stumbling through it. But with Marvel's Avengers, people complained about how Iron Man and Thor and Captain America and
Black Widow
looked, not just like.
And they should have.
Okay, that's what I was gonna get at. So that is kind of crowd-sourced feedback that I think has changed the game. And do you think that that kind of feedback impacting because someone artistically designed those character models and was proud of them enough to show them at E3. Do you think that, like, theoretically, maybe they were like, these look bad right now because they're not done. But do you think that, like, you should be susceptible to that kind of feedback when it's something you've like artistically designed to look a specific way?
Well, that's what I'm saying is I'm saying that you have to know how to filter social media. You have to be able to say, this is good information. This is consistent information coming our way. What do we do with that? Do we care? Do we not care? The best way I can describe it is if you make it personal. Forget video games for a minute. If I were to insult you right now, like, okay, if you were to insult me right now and you were to call me short, I wouldn't care. Seriously. Yeah. I'm 5'6". I've never in my whole life cared about being a short guy, ever. So it's one of those things that if I hear that insult, I'm just like, wait, what? It doesn't even register, okay?
Sure.
But if you insult me, let's say based on, oh, Jaffe, your stream is terrible. We fucking hate it. It's boring. That's going to perk up my brain for a minute because I really care about doing a really good stream and a really good podcast, right? So it's very similar. If you get data coming in for your video game, and you're the team that designed those characters, and you're like, look, fellas, that was Siri. I don't know what the fuck she's talking about. She literally
I have a sixth guest.
I have a house full of virtual assistants, and sometimes they just talk, and it's very creepy. But anyway, but if you're like, fellas, we need to hang fast because we designed these characters for a reason. Marvel's behind it. We're behind it, whatever. But I think what they heard was they took them, look, subjectively speaking, Black Widow looked terrible. She looked terrible. Thor didn't look very good either. And there is a discussion, we were going to discuss it on my stream tomorrow to be had about, because I talked yesterday about how I don't think Ellie's love interest in The Last of Us Part 2 is a very attractive woman. And the idea of where in video games, like in movies, the CW, they hire really good looking people, men and women, to play these roles. That's Hollywood. Right. And where in video games is that, is that a healthy thing? Is that an unhealthy thing? So if you look at Ellie's love interest, or if you look at Black Widow, if you look at Thor, none of those people were casting camera ready in terms of virtual characters. They weren't.
Sure.
That's not an insult. Even though the woman who was based on Ellie's girlfriend is a real woman they face scanned, she's a nice, normal looking human being, but she's not a really attractive star quality. She doesn't look as good as Ellie. She doesn't look as good as Joel. She just kind of looks like an average person you'd see at Trader Joe's. You're like, why is she starring in this fucking game? And so it's okay to say we want to push back against that, but that's really weird, especially in a game like Avengers that's clearly building off the goodwill of the movies, where everybody in that movie is beautiful.
Sure.
The men, the women, the robots, they're all fucking beautiful in the Marvel movies, right? And so to say, hey, we want to build our bones on the foundation of Avengers Endgame, Infinity War, whatever. Here's Black Widow virtual, which everybody knows you're going to be thinking about one of the most beautiful women in the world, which is Scarlett Johansson, and she's a really unattractive virtual character. I think that's information they should have absolutely taken in. I'm glad they did. Same with Thor.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thor looked like a soda can to me. I did not like it.
The new one or the old one?
The first model we saw. I was like,
model, yeah.
Oh, he looks like a soda can with scales.
Yeah, they did it with Supergirl with Injustice 1 or 2. Supergirl looked terrible for the longest time, and they heard the feedback and they go, oh, well, Melissa Benoist is probably the hottest Supergirl there's ever been. Fuck it, let's kind of go along that road and improve her looks. And that, again, that's not a sexist thing. That's men, that's women, that's just, it's entertainment. You want to make your characters look attractive or
Sure.
Yeah.
I've talked a lot. Ben.
Well, so when you talk about people, you talk about feedback being required. What about crowdfunding when it comes to Kickstarters and stuff like that? When you've got people that actually spent money on your game ahead of time, engaging that level of feedback, is it the same sort of thing where you have to just sort of, take an average or?
What's weird about this is you and I are talking centers. So everything you say, I think you're asking me. I don't know who you're asking, so I don't want to hog the conversation.
No, that's okay. You're our guest. You can talk as much as you want.
Yeah,
but anybody's welcome to answer that.
Okay. So. Well, I mean, I would say that it depends on what the crowdfunding promises. If you're like, hey, I'm Hideo Kojima, I'm looking for your money to promote and build my next vision. This is my next vision. If you're in, here's some of the perks you're going to get, and he makes it clear you're funding a Hideo Kojima vision, then I think it's absurd for the people who are funding to expect anything other than what was promised. But there are some Kickstarters that say, help us design this game, help us make the choices. We're going to bring you into the kitchen and you're going to cook this meal with us. In that case, I think that's great. But I think you have to be clear going in.
Okay.
Yeah, I look at Kickstarter as any investment strategy, any type of investment, right? If you're, be advised on what you're putting your money into, and then understand the risk and then what they're saying. Because I've gotten to some Kickstarters where I've been very vocal about it and it's been invited. And then there's been other ones where it's like, nope, we just want your money, to David's point. And it's like, nah, okay, cool. I'm just going to sit back and get my product when it comes. And to be honest, I'm more happy with those when I don't have to do anything and I get a hell of a product than having to provide a ton of feedback every 2 seconds. Because then I look at it and go, well, guys, I just gave you my money. Make a decision, right? I'm investing in a product, in a vision. I wouldn't have given you money if I didn't believe in it.
Yeah, sure.
I think the now famous Night Panda says he did Kickstarter on Unstable Unicorns and Exploding Kittens. And
I did Exploding Kittens as well. And
that game sounds like its name is ridiculous for the sake of ridiculousness, but everyone I know who's played it loves it.
It is my 9-year-old's favorite game to play with me. She loves that game.
And
Every
Eric
minute we
hates
play it.
cats, so
Anyone
It works
listening
out
to this,
perfectly.
don't pair Exploding Kittens and fireworks, please. Because that's where my brain went first.
Oh,
weird.
Never thought about it.
Now you know what
4th
you should
of
do
July
on your
next
stream
year
tomorrow.
is going to be
right,
amazing.
Yeah.
I don't know. Somebody on Twitch just got banned for moving a cat off of their stream, so Exploding a Kitten might be.
Oh God.
Yeah, the old Chuck.
Yeah, might be frowned upon.
Yeah.
Might be frowned upon.
Oh man. So Ben added this question, Sketch added this question, and I don't know how I feel about it, but he asked, what would a game designed by journalists look like? What did you mean by that, bud?
Okay,
Yeah.
all right, so
Absolute shit.
Come on.
All right.
Whoa.
So one of the other questions was who should have a voice about a game's design. You've got your average gamer who's got their opinions. It could be their favorite franchise, or it could be their favorite developer trying something new, but they're going to have an opinion. And I feel like a lot of people look up to the journalists at having a more researched, structured idea of game design, right? Almost second to a developer themselves, right? If they've been in the industry long enough, they've got a better idea of how things work or should work. So maybe their opinion might be a little more pointed, right? Have a little more weight to it. So rather than taking money from somebody for a Kickstarter and just getting the general public's feedback on a game's design, what would a game designed by journalists look like? People who have all been studying games for however long they've been in the industry, right? Is that a thing? Is that worth talking about?
Sure.
Well, there's been. I was just gonna say, there's been a ton of journalists that have jumped from, like Mitch Dyer over at IGN went from. I think this is exactly where you were going to go, Caleb. But I can't remember where he went, but he jumped from IGN straight into. And then somebody from IGN also went over to Anthony. What was Anthony's last name? Gallegos. He jumped over to Gearbox.
What was the guy's name? Luke. Is it who's the guy who's running Destiny 2 now? He used to be a journalist over at
Luke
One
Smith.
Up. Luke Smith.
Yeah, that's right. Wow.
Yeah,
absolutely.
So I guess that's what it would look like.
Yeah, I was going to bring up Gary Whitta, who is the writer of Rogue One, started at PC Gamer, and then did some stuff with a couple other game websites, and then wrote the script for the Walking Dead games and several other Telltale games. So I think there's some validity to the idea that journalists who run around and write about games for years,
dissect games and think about games and talk about games every minute of their life.
Yeah, I'm sure they all have an idea.
Surprised to know that there is a company called I want to say we call them EDAR. I think it's like an acronym for EDDR or whatever, but they're basically a company that looks at games coming out and they assess the quality and they project sales, and they're kind of used by the sales department, the marketing department, things like that. And so whenever a major release is going to go out, when the game gets to around alpha, most publishers will contract this group and say, we need to know how much to spend on marketing for this game. We're too close to it. How good is this game? And they will subcontract journalists who will do it off the record, of course, and they won't say who they are and stuff, although some of us know who they are. And they will basically, they will get 1 or 2 journalists to play the game, and they'll give it a proper rating and a proper review. And it's scarily accurate. Like the last one I did it on was Twisted Metal for 2012. And sure fucking enough, they were like, this is probably going to get an average of 78. You're going to get some people who love it, some people who shit on it. But overall, the Metacritic's going to hang out around 78. And they use that data to sort of decide, okay, well, based on that, this is how much we should spend on marketing and promotion for this game. And so, you know, they are already sort of in the trenches of game development going, let us tell you what we think of your work. I think, who was another Guy Kroll who used to write about video games for Newsweek? Yeah. It has a whole company that does that now. So there's a lot of journalists that kind of jump into development, but you know.
Yeah, I know all of
it's super interesting.
I know all of E3's what do they call it? Judges Week, where they send a bunch of people down to LA to see all the stuff that's going to be on the E3 stage and in the show for the next week. I know several journalists that, like, guys from Waypoint and Vice and Kotaku and Polygon that all go down and do that. And that's where you see the awards and stuff come from. But I've also heard that it's where a lot of companies gauge, like, their first impression scores, because they'll get them from these people, these journalists, and there's other people in the industry that are there at Judges Week, of course. But then they take that information and then gauge it based on what they see, how the public reacts at the show, and then they take those two things and carry those into the next, like, stages of development. I think Halo 4 was big on that. They had a whole series based on the sprints that they did in development, and they had a sprint specifically for what they were building for E3. And then they had another sprint after E3 dedicated to adjusting what they brought to E3 and how it compared to what the game was going to look like. Yeah,
you used to sit at E3 when E3 was a public show, and you'd sit there in the background with a notebook, and you just watch people play and go, yep, nope, change this, change that. It was like a huge focus test that ran for 3 days and never stopped. It was a wonderful source of mining data about what was working and what was not working.
Sure. Is there any of that still to this day, or is that more now PAX and things like that?
It's everywhere. I mean, it depends how, you know, the developer care. It doesn't mean good. The last game I did is the worst game I ever had reviewed or released in terms of commercial success. But we actually got people. We had a table set up for Drawn to Death at the first PSX, and people left the bank of gameplay, and they walked over to me and about 4 other development teams, and we're just like, talk to us. What was good? What was bad? What'd you like? What didn't you like? So it's a wonderful way to get as much data as you can.
Sure. I've heard news recently that E3 is, like, trying to make it a more like a Gamescom kind of event.
Yeah.
That's, like, longer with more stuff going on. But, like, all of the responses I've seen so far, and my own, was like, Convention Center can't be big enough to host a Gamescom style.
No, they would have to move venues. But the organization that runs E3 is in a world of shit after this last year.
Yeah.
And the
ESA's waffling a little.
The leak that they had.
Yep.
So knowing what everybody knows about putting a product on the internet and watching the internet sort of respond to that for good or for worse, if you guys were to design your own game, or in David's case, a new game, would you want to do it in a well-curated bubble and using just playtesting as your external exposure, or would you want to design a game like Apex or like Destiny where you get an aggregate of everybody's responses and curate a game around that? How do you guys think?
Ooh.
Yeah.
It's kind of like asking me what superpower I want.
Why would you want the latter? Fuck, what's the latter?
Yeah, nobody wants
well,
it.
To me, the latter is Destiny,
it's
and Destiny lost me a long time ago because it kept changing.
But, like, at the same time, the ladder is also Warframe, and you fucking love that game.
Yeah. Okay, but you're talking about when the game, once it's out. Yes. Are you talking about when the game is in development once it's
interesting.
out?
Yeah, well, how many games are designed with public feedback? Is that a thing?
I mean, very few. That's why I thought that was your hypothetical. Hey, what about this?
Well, I mean, I guess you could look at Apex. They launched with 8 characters and 1 map, right? That's kind of that's a pretty small game in comparison. Now all the games being
a service-based game has to take in crowd.
it has to.
Unless you're just a savant and you're running the team and you're just like, I know exactly what everybody wants, and that would be great. You could ask for the moon in money and in royalties, but short of that, if you're making a service-based game and you don't take into account user feedback, I mean, when you have a service-based game, you basically have a theme park. You're basically running a virtual Disney. You're running a virtual Disneyland.
Yeah,
and so
that's a good way to put it.
Disneyland is constantly out there. You know, what's working, what's not working. This line is too long. This ride is too boring. Galaxy's Edge is not bringing in the crowds. What are we doing wrong? And they're adjusting, you know, constantly. I used to have season passes to Disneyland, and I took my kids. We sometimes would go 4 times a month. We loved it that much.
Awesome.
And every single time we would go, there was construction somewhere else up in the park. They were always plussing it, always working on it. It's never finished. And I think when you're making a service-based game, that's part of the job.
Sure.
Yeah. This is who we are now.
Yeah.
Right.
So, of the games that like we've all played, what studio? I don't want to. That might be a too pointed a question, but like, what instances of like good studio interaction with harsh criticism or just large levels of feedback have you seen and do you appreciate? I know, like, for instance, Ryan and I play a ton of Rocket League. I say I play a ton. He's played twice as much as me, and Panda in the chats played almost twice as much as him. But like, we were there when they started introducing the loot boxes, like in larger numbers. And then when they brought in the decryptors, so we didn't have to pay for them. And then even now, Ryan, we had a conversation a couple weeks ago about how, yeah, it's cool they gave us decryptors, but they give you like 1 for every 10 crates you get. So, like, it doesn't really help. But like, being a part of a community of a game that is very interactive with its fans and its development process, like, Ryan, do you think that improves the reason? Is that why you play service-based games like that? Why we play Rocket League? Why we play Apex? Or is it just because it's fun?
I play Rocket League just because it's fun. I mean, there's people that play it for fun, and then like I've got friends that play it for fun and for the fact that they're gonna open a crate and they're gonna get a super rare item, and then they can go online and trade that for like 5 keys, which is $5. Or 20 keys based on the rarity of the item, and they make money off of it. So, I mean, it's just kind of a give or take. Like, some people treat it like a business, and the fact that they have all like fancy, nice cars, and they're still good at the game. So, I mean, it just all depends on the player itself. Like, I play it for fun. I could care less about the items. If I get something cool, great. I got something cool, but I haven't bought keys in like 2 years.
Well, Caleb, I feel like your question changed about halfway through.
Yeah, so I was curious.
Yeah.
Was the question which developer originally? I think was the question which developer do we think is doing a good job of that?
Yeah, so like we frequently talk about how Apex, we like the changes, but we think the changes are coming too slow. And Ryan and I have talked about Rocket League and the crates needing to change and not knowing how, and then seeing the changes they offered up today. And I just like, what changes based on community feedback have you seen, and what studios deal with those the best?
Do I need to tell you my answer? Because it's probably pretty obvious too.
Ben's gonna say Warframe.
We know. Move on.
David, we say that
Warframe's community outreach is probably one of the best I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah, I'll agree with that. They're constantly on their stream, constantly talking, constantly getting, and they're using Twitch brilliantly.
Updates. Yep.
David, we call Ben. Sorry, Eric, I'm interrupting you, but
you're fine.
We call Sketch our resident Warman because he comes to your door like a Mormon and tries to get you to play Warframe every night. And almost everyone in our group our friend group is like, please just leave me alone. And they don't answer the door.
Gotta mention it in every stream. It's got to come up somehow.
Yep.
And
look, you're not alone. God knows playing that game.
They are. I mean,
millions.
No, I'm kidding. I'm sure it's great. I mean, I'm fascinated by how. I mean, seriously, that game. I'm on a message board with a lot of the people in the industry, and it's a private message board. But I remember the guys who were on that were first showing us on the message board this thing they were doing, because right before that, I think they had Dark Sector or
That's
something.
Right. Yep.
And it was like, here's this thing we're going to try to do on our own. What do you guys think? And we're like, that looks pretty cool, you know?
Yeah.
And fucking X years later, we're like, holy shit, this thing,
It's
it
a
reminds
monster.
me of a more hardcore version of Roblox in the sense that it's this very under the radar thing. You don't hear a lot of people talking about it, and yet it's quietly off in its own little world of the internet, making shit tons of money and making shit tons of players super happy. So it's really cool that you're able to have games out there like that do that, and they're really not on the radar of the mainstream core gaming mindset.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
I know very few people that talk about it. Mostly because I don't want more people.
I know
talking
fewer
about
people that play
it.
well.
Hiccups.
Well, I know a lot of
Dozens
people.
us.
I know a lot of people that play it that don't even talk about it, right? They play it on stream. They stream it. It's their main game, but then
That's
they
the first rule of Warframe, though.
Yeah, exactly. First rule of Warframe.
Oh,
Don't
play-
talk about Warframe.
Play on stream.
We don't need any of these people knowing what we're doing over here
That's
at all. I don't know if I could put back to your original question. I don't know if I could put a pin in a developer that's. I mean, there's people that are doing great jobs. I think the Apex team is doing a good job. I mean, are they slow? But what is slow, right? They're in sprint cycles,
Sure.
constantly developing. For this pressure that is getting to the point. And David, maybe you could speak to this a little bit. The pressure is just so obscene that there's a lot of development, and I feel there's a lot of burnout, especially with friends that I talk to, because the pressure is you can't meet it. There's an expectation that gets set, and there's no chance you're ever going to meet it because of hype or things. I still point at Apex as one of the greatest releases of all time because they said, here's the game, and then 30 minutes later it was playable, and there was nothing about it outside of
trailer out. And
Yeah.
now play.
Yep,
Yeah,
and it's
literally
available
they hit
now.
play on the trailer, and the end was like, "Go
That's
play
what they
now."
did with the Dreamcast.
Yeah. Well, that worked out.
And
That
it's
didn't
out
work
now.
out. It's out now. And oh shit, we're out of money.
Yeah, yeah. How has like hype and that whole thing that exists like impacted? I feel bad because we're like 45 minutes, an hour into this podcast, and I didn't introduce you by like talking about what you've done. But you were the, you know what I mean? Like I just realized that, and I feel like an asshole. But
We're good at this.
This whole time.
You directed and like led teams on for Twisted Metal and Twisted Metal 2 and the one that came out in 2012 and God of War and God of War 2. Like, how many times did you have to like address the team that you were, leading and say, hey, like people are excited specifically for sequels. Like people are excited about what we're making now that they've found out that we're like actually making it. How do you keep people from like seeing that and having just like overwhelming feelings of having to live up to these like titanic expectations?
So, I mean, the first time it ever hit us was on God of War. We came back from E3, and until we went to E3, I believed in it. Some people on the team believed in it, but none of us really knew if we had anything. I like it, but who the fuck knows, And E3 was really wonderful. And I remember Shannon, who ran the production team, we all gathered in the atrium of Sony Santa Monica, and she was like, downloading, and I was downloading all the data to the team of like how people had responded and the awards we got and the previews we got. And certainly when you come back from E3 and you have that kind of those kind of accolades, everyone's fucking on cloud nine and motivated really hard and things like that. The next game, though, when I did Twisted Metal 2012, and I mean, there's video of me online in a hotel room in Vegas just about to lose my fucking mind because when that game launched, and I think it's probably one of the best Twisted Metals we've ever made, but when that game launched,
Agreed.
we were having a real big problem with getting people online. And the net code was great in Twisted 2012, but the problem wasn't the net code in terms of once you were linked. It was working with Sony's backend to get people linked. This was before PSN had become robust like it is now. This was like, the Sony hack had just happened and fucked SOCOM. I mean, it was not a good time to be releasing primary online games on hardware with the back end that they had at the time. And so dealing with the community then, you saw their goodwill go from like, I would be tweeting and making videos and it's like, I know some of you guys are having a hard time. We're about to push a patch. Let me know. And I mean, we were calling people at their homes, just like, thank you so much for buying our game. And we're sorry,
Wow.
and then
That's
that
funny.
just starts to get, rightly so, the customer starts to get pissier and angrier and madder because they bought this game and it's not working. And because I was the face of that game, I took the brunt of that, which I was fine to do. You live by the sword, you die by the sword. But ultimately, you can't go to the public a lot of times and say, well, here's the deal. Sony's back end on PS3 for network games really is kind of shit because
Sure.
they're having political problems with what Japan wants versus what America wants, and the online mentality of games in America is very different in Japan. But a lot of these high-end decisions about what the back-end infrastructure is going to be is taking place, across the fucking Pacific Ocean, and they have their own political battles that they're fighting. You can't at the time go online and explain that. And even if you could, the guy who just spent $60 at Best Buy is like, I don't give a fuck.
Right, just make
I
it
don't give
work.
a fuck. Make this shit work, motherfucker. And they have every right, So I've been everywhere and anywhere in between, and there's only so much you can do. At which point you just have to sort of look out for your own mental health and say, guys, I'm here for you. I'll answer your tweets. I'll be here. I'm not going to respond to people being assholes to me other than saying, I get you're mad. We're doing the best we can. And then on Drawn to Death, which was the first service game I ever worked on, even though it didn't last very long, that was a really good experience. I loved interfacing with the community. I loved, pushing new content every week. And you're asking how the team felt. I mean, the only problem with the service game is when you're flying high, the team is flying high. But when your game isn't received well, but they still have to come in Monday morning and bust their ass to get a new group of content, a new mystery box item or whatever, new skins or a new mode to come out 2 weeks later, and they still have to work just as hard as if the game were a hit. That's really hard. It's really hard to keep people motivated. It's really hard to keep people looking for new jobs while they're supposed to be creating art assets and things like that. But I also imagine if you're on the Fortnite team, you want to fucking jump out a window because that's the biggest game in the goddamn world, and it's going to go down in history as being as big as like Pac-Man was when I was a kid, or as big as the first Mario was. Right. But I can't imagine. I know the guy who leads that effort. I can't imagine what it would be like to be on that team and the grind never fucking ends. So we get to sit back and go, ooh, Batman's coming out for Fortnite. Ooh, Thanos is coming out for Fortnite. And there's a bunch of poor people sitting there wherever they're making the content going, I'm so fucking tired. I just want to go home and see my newborn baby. It's like, no, motherfucker, you're working on Fortnite. So yeah, it's all over the place.
Sure. And they've been in the news relatively recently about their work schedules and having people working like 60, 80 hours a week, which...
Yeah, and the customer doesn't care. The customer should not care. It's not the customer's problem. But ultimately, is it sustainable? Answer is probably. Because those people will burn out and new people will come in. It's getting easy. It's getting easier to make games. Tools are getting easier. Fortnite's not the kind of game that has to have bleeding edge technology like the Naughty Dog games. It's basically a really beautiful art design game, but it's not very complicated in terms of how it looks and how they create that. Runs on a bunch of computers that aren't the top of the food chain and mobile phones and shit. Mobile phones. Like there's not mobile phones. Anyway.
Like there's stationary phones anymore.
Right. It's like when people say interactive video game. Like what other kind of games are they? You just stare at it, and
Call I mean, my landline.
Yeah, well, but it's. I mean, ultimately though, there are going to be people to fill in the gaps. Those people drop out, and it's like, okay, well, thanks for your service. We're going to get these 20 other kids who are dying to get into video games. That's the way it is right now. Yeah. And I'm not saying it's good.
That's a really refreshing point of view. Like most of the people in my sphere are all about keeping these studios in check and making sure unions step in to make sure that hours don't go over and that people get, keeping things the way they feel it should be. And you're sort of in a way stating it from the other side, saying like, hey, it's the way it is. It's working. It's going to continue to work.
Unions will never, unless something changes, unions will never. So mad at me when I say that. They're just like so fucking. And I'm not saying I'm opposed to unions. Mm-hmm. I think unions have been great for a lot of industries in America, but when you're basically unions only work because they can apply leverage, they can apply pain to pressure points of the people that they're negotiating with. I mean, unions are not magic. They're like, oh, you want this, we represent these people. If you don't do what we say, you don't get what you want. It's very simple. But the publishers, they don't have any weak points to attack for massive damage, right? The publishers just kind of go, okay, well, you represent the guys that rig the characters for animation. They don't want to do it for this. All right, we're going to go overseas. That'll even work because we'll send that over to Hong Kong or wherever. And in the morning when the team comes in, all that'll be done. So we'll basically be developing 24 hours and we'll be doing it for pennies on the dollar. Great. And so it doesn't mean it's fair. It doesn't mean it's right. But between that and between the fact that you have people who are willing to give their left fucking foot to get into the industry, the people who basically want to be treated better, what leverage do they have?
Right.
Other than just morality, it would be, the good companies should still be good companies. I'm not saying these are sweatshops, but there are some that are.
Yeah.
Sure.
Interesting. All right, Caleb, what do you think? You want to start?
I have nothing to say after.
No, that's a very a very contemplative thing to.
That was enlightening.
Yeah. We had a conversation. Ben and I had a conversation a few weeks ago with a gentleman from Game Workers Unite over in the UK, and it was a really interesting conversation about unionization in Europe. And most of that conversation was very pointedly, when it came to America, about how like the game industry would just have to change so much here for it to work. And it's working in smaller companies like Europe because homogenization or just different work cultures altogether. And so he said that they were seeing like smaller countries institute nationwide laws for a nation of like 25 million people. But you've got like cities of 25 million in the United States. And so like the implementation process here, much like you said, things would have to change wildly or they just won't.
Right.
So yeah, it's interesting hearing that from somebody.
And by the way, that's not defeatist. That's like whenever I argue union people, they'll act like I'm being like, well, it's never going to work if you have that attitude. I'm like, I'm not that. I'm just where I'm starting from. I'm saying this is how it is today. Yeah. If you're really serious about unions and you're not just trying to get some virtue signaling points on the internet and you really genuinely want to fix the problem, then let's talk about that. This is the way games work right now. How do you create pressure points that unions can apply to the publishers in America? And when you do that, then you have a pot to piss in. Then there's a real conversation. But don't fucking come at me and act like you're all high and mighty because I'm unions and Jaffe, you're not. No, I'm just telling you the way it is. And you're not showing up with any ideas. You just want to keep getting kudos online. Fuck you.
Sure.
Fuck you. So.
I love it. Yeah. So David, we generally wrap up our shows with a segment we call Bounties. It is called Bounty Board after all. And it's a segment where we tell people what we're reading, listening to, watching, and or playing. It can be all four. It can be one or two of those things. And we kind of share it with the group. So do you want to take the lead on that? Do you want to hear us talk about it first? What do you want to do?
Well, do you just say what you're reading or do you talk about it?
We talk about it a little bit like an elevator pitch for why somebody else should be into it.
You go first and I'll go. I'll see how it works.
Sweet. Right. Okay. So right now I am watching Good Place. I'm wrapping up season 2. That show's incredible. If you're not watching it,
it's great.
You're wrong.
It's one of my new favorite shows. It's absolutely incredible.
It's so good. Yeah. I didn't think it would be, and it just keeps getting better.
And the 4th and final season just started. So.
Yep.
Yeah, I have to like turn off the internet for a month, or for not a month, for a while.
Holy shirt, right? Or fork balls.
Holy forking shirt balls.
Yeah, me and my kid watched the first 2 seasons, and we haven't gotten to season 3, but it's great.
Yeah,
season 3 is bad shit.
I've heard. Apparently, season 3 and the ending of season 3 is so emotional that like
very emotional.
Several people I know sobbed, and I was like, wow. "What? That show's funny."
It's hard to realize how that's possible. You'll find out.
Cool. Yeah, that sounds intimidating. I'm not reading anything right now because I'm a Luddite. Playing a lot of Ghost Recon. That game came out on Monday.
I heard it's not good.
I'm enjoying it. How have you heard that it's not good? No,
where did you hear?
No, I'm curious what the complaints were.
I haven't read the articles. I've just seen a bunch of headlines about it's rife with microtransactions. It's really buggy, and it's not as good as Badlands. Those are the kind of the headlines. I haven't played it.
Interesting. Yeah, so I've encountered a few bugs, but I've also played it the first 2 days it's been out, so I'm a little flexible on things like that. Yeah. I recorded one that I was streaming yesterday, and I recorded like the bit that it bugged out so that I can send it to him, because it's this weird like equip your class gadget and then no buttons work. Like you can walk around, but you can't aim, you can't shoot, you can't crouch, you can't throw, you can't do anything at all anymore. It completely goes away.
Is that game officially out for sale, or it's like an open beta?
So if you bought the $100 or $130 versions, you got it on the first.
you get it 2 days early.
You got it 4 days early.
$40 or $50.
4 days.
Yeah, you got it on the
mouth. I know. Okay. I'm just gonna swallow fire.
Is that a lighter? Yeah. Like that's either a magic trick or gonna be really painful.
Enough.
Yeah, so you just rolled your eyes a lot, but I bought the $100 version of that game and got it on the first.
Hashtag part of the problem, right there.
Awesome.
Shit. Yep, I am.
It's okay. Hey, I got guys on my stream. $200 Last of Us. But I'm like, why? For some cheap plastic fucking statue that is going to collect? I just don't get it. But
anyway,
my
God, I'm so glad my
Caleb,
camera isn't.
pan
No.
Your camera around, please.
He's got every Halo figure that came out with the game.
I have like a $250 Titanfall statue in my office, but
I got one of those back there behind the green screen. You're all right. Good company.
It's all right. What I'm doing, David, is I'm hearing things I'm not really worried about, and so I'm not gonna let them. I'm not gonna impact my development process.
You should watch a movie on Netflix called The Minimalist. That's my recommendation.
I've watched that movie and I fucking loved it. And I keep buying shit.
Take it in, man. Take it in.
Oh man,
we're about to have our third kid. My wife and I are all about that movie right now.
Are you though? You're adding children.
You're adding children.
No, but we're getting rid of shit.
Of the other ones? Oh,
the other ones. There's too much shit.
Yeah. Those kids have burned out. We're gonna get in some young ones.
Call back Central. I'm actually really enjoying Ghost Recon, but I'm also kind of starved right now for tactical stealth games. Splinter Cell's been 8 years silent, and I'm wondering what they're gonna bring out next. And you mentioned earlier SOCOM's death at the hands of late network issues and whatever. So like it's filling a spot that hasn't really had anything in it. Assassin's Creed last year wasn't my jam either. So like it's my stealth thing for now until I get into Dishonored 2 on Game Pass, because it's on Game Pass now.
I mean, and none of
your wait. What's on Game Pass? The new Ghost
Dishonored 2.
No, Dishonored 2 is on Game Pass.
Okay,
yeah,
I was gonna say what? Okay.
Sorry, no, Ghost Recon is not. Outer Wilds is at the end of this month, and I am pumped for that. But that's watching, that's reading, that's playing, listening. I'm not listening to. Oh no, that's not true. Apple Music, if you're subscribed, if you're not, just stop listening. Has a playlist called a Classical Edge, and it's classical music with electronic supplementation.
Yep.
Oh my God, it's so good. If I put that music on while I'm driving in a car, you could do anything to me and I won't get upset. I got cut off the other day and the person slammed on their brakes to turn, and I was just like, I'm fine. I can wait for a few more minutes. So yeah, that's super good. Subscribe to that if you would, add that to your playlist if you want. It's dope. But that's the rundown. That's how we do it. So do you wanna go next?
Sure. I am playing Yoshi's Crafted World, playing Gears of War 5. Almost done with that. Playing River City Girl, which I'm adoring. I'm almost done with that.
Yeah, that's fun.
I am reading Rendezvous from Arthur C. Clarke, which is really good. I am reading the Bob Iger book about his tenure at Disney over the last 15 years called The Ride of a Lifetime, which is really good. And I am reading a book called The Outsider, which is a Stephen King horror book that was published last year, which is really, really good. I am watching Madam Secretary, and I'm anxiously awaiting Supergirl and The Flash to hit TV next week.
Are those shows good?
Yes. Flash is one of the... So the CW superhero shows are the most authentic, even beyond Marvel. They're the most authentic comic book shows ever made. The costumes,
they're all good.
They're made by people. I mean, it's everything from just genuinely good writing, especially The Flash. Supergirl was not good for a long time, but I had the crush on Melissa Benoist. But then last season they actually got some new writers, and last season became a genuinely interesting, good show.
Okay.
So it's everything from genuinely being good superhero shows, the costumes, the vibe, all that. Flash is wonderful, down to things that if you're a hardcore comic nerd, they will literally have scenes in the show where they are riffing on a panel from a classic comic book, like with the Flash and Supergirl, or they have multi. This season they have multiverse where they have 3 Supermen. They have like Brandon Roth and who are the other ones? The guy they have on the CW playing Superman, and then the guy who was on Smallville.
Yeah,
so I mean, it's
What?
really cool. And I'm a Marvel guy, but these are great fucking shows.
So I started with like Arrow, and I remember
I did not like Arrow at all.
Okay, cool. That makes me feel better, because like season 3 of Arrow, I was like, nah, I don't want this anymore.
Arrow was their first crack at it, and Arrow was kind of like, we don't have a lot of money, so we don't have the money to really embrace the superhero thing. So it almost felt like a guy in a costume doing like a procedural cop show.
Yep.
But once they got, and I hate that shit.
Always in abandoned warehouses. Too.
Yes, exactly.
Always.
But once they got to the Flash, if you watch the first few episodes on the Flash of season 1 and you don't like it, you're not going to like it. But it is so wonderful and breezy and fun and captures the heart and soul of that character. It's awesome.
Okay. Cool.
As for listening, I'm not a big aficionado of music. I mean, in terms of like the shit I have Apple Music, but I listen to a lot of Christmas Bing Crosby all year round. I'm listening to that.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that.
No, awesome. I know. I'm listening to what the fuck is the other thing I listen to a lot of is the Mary Poppins Returns soundtrack, which is great.
Okay.
And I finally I started listening to the beginnings of the new Frozen 2 soundtrack, which is really cool. You can kind of find leaks of it online, but I'm not a big music aficionado guy at all. I'm just kind of like, I'm like top 40. I still like Phil Collins. I like Taylor Swift. My kids have moved on. My kids are like, let's go see like Palais Royale and shit. I was like, what the fuck is that? You know, but
yeah, sure.
And they don't want to go see Katy Perry or Taylor Swift anymore, but I still love that stuff. So that's what I'm into right now.
All right.
Gotcha.
Dope. Cool. Ryan, why don't you hit us up with what you're doing?
Let's see. I'm going through and watching all old shows because I have a newborn and I can't really pay attention to new stuff. So I'm watching like Friends and The Office because I've seen that 30,000 times in the past 2 years. I'm watching Community. I'm watching Superstore, which they just dropped a new season. So I'm trying to finish up season 4 to get to season 5. That's a really funny show. I think it's one that I can substitute for The Office just because it's a new comedy to have. I've been playing a lot of Rocket League like normal, and then today Apex dropped their new season pass, or yesterday, sorry.
Yeah, season 3.
Season 3. The new map is fantastic. The new guns are awesome. The new character is incredible.
Wait, is there more than one new gun?
No, just new. Yeah, it's just
the charge
rifle and then new hop up.
They have new hop ups. They have a double tap that you can put on the EVA 8 or the G7 Scout, and it's literally like a rapid fire for the shotgun. And so like you can put out a lot more rounds. EVA is so much more powerful. Let's see. Oh, the new character is basically Bloodhound with a drone. But when you put the drone out and you detect enemies, it literally leaves them highlighted until they shoot the drone. So you can just put them in the air, put it in the air above them, and if they shoot it, they shoot it. If not, you have the exact location of where these people are. Tech used it the other night, and I got 3 kills just out of nowhere.
That's why I saw a meme with Takeshi 6ix9ine's face on the drone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh God.
It was so good.
He's over there.
So yeah, Apex is super good right now. They don't have the old map anymore, so they took that away for right now. I hope that's a temporary thing where you can switch back and forth.
Yeah.
I think they just want people to dive into it. So,
maybe they'll bring it back changed. Who knows?
Yeah. Listening to, I just have a couple playlists that I've made on Google Play that I listen to just as a bunch of random stuff. It's got country, rap, rock all mixed together. So
gross.
That's about it.
Oh, I forgot to mention, I've been listening to a shit ton of Queens of the Stone Age. I rediscovered how much I love them.
Nice.
Yeah. Sketch, why don't you go next?
Mine's gonna go fast. I'm not really listening to anything new. We did start a bunch of new shows. We watched episode 1, first few episodes of The Terror, the show of the 1850s ships that get stuck in the Arctic Circle, and then supernatural things happen. It's incredible. AMC show. We started Barry, which is very, very good.
Oh,
I've heard that's good. I've never seen it.
Yeah, it's awesome.
That show's
Hayter's
incredible,
a tour de
dude.
force in that. But and then we started Fleabag, which is amazing. What else? And then of course we were right on track. I'm finally up to date with the show. We watched the first episode of the 4th season of The Good Place. So that's cool.
Fleabag is one of those shows everybody talks about, and it's there needs to be like a word for it where it's like I'm annoyed by it because everybody won't shut up about it, so I'm not watching it. But I need to. But honestly, you ever have those shows where it's like, shut the fuck up about the fucking
Game of Thrones was that for years.
It's like,
for me.
right. And it's like, but I hear Fleabag is so good, and I just for some reason it just has occupied that pace in my brain where it's like, oh, it's that show.
Yeah,
shut up about fucking Fleabag.
So what's gonna happen is that's gonna die off. That talk's gonna die off. Then you're gonna watch it. Then you're gonna want to talk about it when nobody else wants to.
That's how The Office was for me.
Yeah.
My boss talked about it for years, and he's like referencing shit. I was like, all right, whatever. And then like I stopped working for him, and then I started watching it, and I started texting him like, dude, this show's amazing. He's like, dude, I know.
Who's the oldest guy there?
Where?
In your chat, like in your podcast.
It's between Glass and the Black Hat and
yeah, no, Ben's got me by a couple months.
Okay, so the reason I'm asking is because when I was a kid, I'm 48, so it used to be that everybody watched the same thing because you had 3 fucking channels in PBS. And so, I mean, and there was actually a charming nicety about that everybody would come into school the next day and you had all seen MASH, or you had all seen the $6 Million Man, or whatever the fuck it was you were into, or G.I. Joe, or whatever. And now it really is the fact that your boss is into The Office and 2 years later you're into The Office. There is something, if you're a sociologist in 100 years, there is something fascinating and potentially lost about the fact that we no longer have entertainment like we used to as a shared frame of reference. I think that's done something to the culture that it is not great. I mean, I don't think
maybe
we
that's
should
why
go
Game
backwards.
of Thrones is so successful, because everybody was relevant and current with Game of Thrones, right?
Yeah, I think
except me. I've never I couldn't get into it.
I've never seen it. Never seen a single episode.
So I have a proposition.
The next point stands.
I have a
proposition.
proposition.
Hold on, before your proposition, that's why I think. Well, I was just gonna say to Ben's point, David's point is I think that's why I think Disney Plus's move of releasing stuff week over week is a brilliant play. So it gives that Game of Thrones quality.
I'm anti-binge, so I like.
I love it. I love it.
It's in his name.
I've paid for 3 years already. I am so stoked and excited for Disney Plus. I can't wait. But you're excited that The Mandalorian, you're going to have to watch every
I'm good with it.
Yeah,
I'm good with it.
I like that too.
Why?
Yeah.
Why?
Because he's a curmudgeon. Because he's a curmudgeon. He doesn't like fun.
So I work a lot.
Is it because it's going to cut into your Warframe play?
No. That's a nice jab. I appreciate you. You fit right in. But no, I'm making a book right now, and every minute I'm not working on it, I kind of feel really guilty. So I only watch a couple hours of television a day. So the girlfriend gets home, we eat dinner, I watch TV, and then I'd be like, I got to go back to work. I'm sorry.
Right.
Yeah, I can't binge 8 hours a day of.
Hey, a couple hours of Office is like 8 episodes.
That's true, but most episodes are 50 minutes these days. So
sitting down and watching 3 episodes of Mandalorian wouldn't be fun.
Oh, I'd love that. Maybe just wait. Just wait till they're all up.
That's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna let it pass the zeitgeist, and then I'm gonna just binge it.
But hell, I'm excited for the Anna Kendrick fight.
Yeah, I'm super down for that.
You're a comic artist, right?
That's right.
So when you say you're working on a book, is it your own, or is it like you're doing a contract with Image or Marvel or something?
I'm making a book with Red 5 right now called The Butcher Queen. And book 1's on the shelf, and book 2's coming out in a month. So
okay, I asked because I am a huge
nice.
But there came a point where I started using these online read comics that are scanned online for free services, which are awful. I know it's awful, but I would go into a comic book store, which it sucks. You have to go into a fucking store. You can't just go down to the goddamn 7-Eleven, but it is what it is.
Yeah, right.
And I'd be like, okay,
Actually,
I'm in the mood.
Walmart's bumping up their comic sales. They're going to start selling comics now.
Those
Try to
more
push
than
that.
more than the big
Yeah.
giant volumes. Okay, that's great. That's wonderful.
They're pretty neat.
But
Anyway,
the
back to
prices on comics are, I understand maybe that's what they have to be, but
you
I
don't
would
like
go
you don't like $4 and $5. You don't like that?
not for a pamphlet that I can get through in about 12 minutes. It seems broken. And then they don't want to piss off the comic book stores. And so digitally, which I thought was going to be the savior of comics, it's like, great. I don't mind spending $1.50 on a comic,
Right.
but they can't do that because they're going to piss off, the fucking diamond distributors. And so I'm just, from your standpoint, I mean, I'm sure you don't like the people who are out there reading free comics, but it's so easy. It's so easy. It's not illegal, even though it's horribly immoral. It's illegal for the people putting them up, but it's not illegal to read them because you're not actually streaming them or downloading them. But it's absolutely bad karma. but ultimately, though, I don't think it's too expensive of a hobby. I mean, is there?
Interesting. No, that's good feedback. And it's a really interesting industry that's been changing a lot over the last few years. The MCU and the DCEU, all that had a nice positive swing for comics and readers and stuff like that, especially with younger readers, which has been a hard demographic to tap for the industry. But
isn't that crazy that comic books can't tap a younger media?
Yeah, it's absurd. But it's
all about Fortnite.
Right.
Oh my God.
Well, it's reading in general. Really, they want immediate gratification. So they want a controller in their hands, right? But I think there's a lot of moving parts, and Diamond Distribution is definitely one of the largest gears in this machine, and they have a lot to say. It's a monopoly. They run things. So if you sell your book for $1 on the internet, then they're gonna have something to say about that. So we've got our book on Comixology. I don't think it's any cheaper though. It's the same price, and then you don't get to hold something. So
right. So it's like, why would I do that? So I wanted to hear from because I love the medium, and I've read comics since I was like 4 years old, and I still read them. But once somebody turned me on to that site, I was just like, I can't really spend $5 on a fucking comic book. It's an absurd ask.
So I just have a very limited pull list. So I'm reading 4 or 5 things a month tops, and I only go to the comic book shop every other week. I don't go every week and have a stack like this and spend
I used to do that. It would be like $220, and my wife at the time was like, "Really?" I'm like, "I know, it's just."
You're just gonna put it in a box, and it's gonna get old. And
so
I throw them away. I don't collect anymore. I just like to read them. I just want to read the fucking things. I love the stories and the art. I don't care about collecting. That was the thing. People are like, "Oh, well, they're expensive because the paper." I know this isn't what your podcast is about. I'm sorry.
No, it's fine. That's fine. Go for it. Go for it.
But there's a company I think they're called Anthem, and I've never read any of their comics, but they've gone back to newsprint to lower the price of their comics. And I keep meaning to get into a comic store to find it because I know a lot of people are like, "Oh, you don't want that because the art doesn't look as good." But I'm like, man, I just want to read these fucking cool stories with the cool art. I don't care if I can't hang it on my fucking wall. Just fucking can I get a good value for my money? But
Yeah,
what's your comic called again? Your comic's called what though?
Butcher Queen.
Butcher Queen. What's the genre?
It's cyberpunk.
Oh, okay.
So it's a cyberpunk sort of detective thriller.
I will look for it when I am in the comic store. Probably once every maybe 3. Now, it used to be every week, but cool.
Yeah, that's fine. I appreciate that.
Yeah, of course.
I'm one of the people that goes to. I go like once every 3 or 4 months and spend like $100.
Yeah.
But I don't buy.
Yeah, I
don't buy issues. I buy trades. I wait until there's 5 books or 5 issues thrown into a book, and I buy like 6, 7, 8 of those.
There are a few series that I want to stay up to date on. Sean Murphy's Batman White Knight. I'm a super fan, so I got to read that. But a lot of times I'll pick up the first issue and go, yeah, cool, that's good. I'll buy that when it's on trade, which sucks. And as somebody as a creator, that's awful, and we hate that because we watch the pre-orders on the first issue. We sell thousands of copies, and then every subsequent issue gets less and less pre-orders because people just wait for the trade because it's more bang for your buck. 10, 15, 20 bucks.
It is the weirdest business. It's like every other business people that are smart sit down at the executive level and go, guys, let's fucking fix this. Let's turn the ship around. We have this amazing industry, and comics just seems like from the outside looking in, again, this is what we were talking about with games, right? It's so easy to be a backseat driver or a Monday morning quarterback. I don't fucking know what the industry's really like, but from the outside looking in, it's like dum-da-dum, we are the comic executives at Marvel. We're fucking morons. And I know that's not true. I know that's not
well, I can't speak for Marvel, but
it feels true. It feels
Yeah.
like, guys, don't you want to sell more fucking comics? And I'm sure they're like, yes, Jaffe, you motherfucker. Of course we want to sell more comics. There's a lot of shit you don't know about. And I respect that. But as a fan, I'm just like, come on, guys. $5 for a fucking 22-page issue or $4.
With 15 pages of ads, right?
Yeah, who's going to pay that? No one.
I don't pay that much. I don't pay that much when I buy a 60-page New York Times.
No, I can rent a fucking movie for $2.99 on Apple 2 hours, and it's fucking big budget, all this shit, and I'm just like, you want me to pay $4.99 for a comic book? It's crazy.
I've never thought about it that way. That's interesting.
That's a very interesting analogy. Yeah, I haven't thought of it that way.
Movies cost.
Yeah, my book is $3.99. Everybody go buy it.
Butcher Queen.
Shit. David, I wanted to I wanted to throw out not even an olive branch, but like a potential word for the thing you were trying to put a term to for stuff that's in the zeitgeist that you fucking hate. Just call it the Scheitgeist.
There you go. Scheitgeist is good. Yeah. I like it. It's not that I hate it. It's just that I hate that everyone about it, and it turns me off, even though I eventually. I hear again. I'm sure I will love Fleabag, but I'm so tired of hearing people talk about it. I'm not going to watch it, which is so dumb.
Yeah, but that's a show for you that has moved from cultural zeitgeist to cultural Scheitgeist.
Scheitgeist. That's right. It's like Marvelous Mrs. Maisel. If I was running around people to watch that, and people were like, shut up about the fucking Maisel, Jaffe. We're sick of it. But anyway.
Yeah, exactly. Hi, Ryan's wife, who's unaware that she's on camera.
I'm telling her, she's like, no.
Yep.
Yep. You definitely.
Hello. We got Eric's bounties to go through.
Yeah, Eric, what are your things you want to share with people's?
Borderlands 3. I mean, I'm through 2 playthroughs of the main campaign already. On one character, full clear on Zane. Everything is done. About to start leveling another character. I'm hopelessly addicted to this as I was Diablo 3, as I get with Diablo, those type of games. So I'll be playing this for quite a while. I'll probably take a break when what is the RPG that's coming out? We just mentioned it. Outer Worlds. Thank you. Comes out. I just finished up reading Matt Best's book, Thank You for My Service. Matt Best is one of the guys who founded Black Rifle Coffee Company. So he joined the military at 18. Dude is super interesting. Joined the military at 17, shipped off Special Forces. He talks a lot about in the book about how he became a YouTube star before starting Black Rifle, and then the t-shirt company that he ran. It's a really funny take on being an internet personality and turning that into a legitimate business.
Oh, that's cool. That sounds good.
With that, and he super cool guy. Not listening to anything new. Other than that, just Borderlands and getting ready for baby number 3 in January.
Oh boy.
I'll stick to 1.
Yeah. The 2 is in the air right now. We're thinking about it, but our 1.
Well, so y'all are gonna have like real short gaps. I've got 5 years between the first 2, and now we're gonna have another 5 years between the second 2. So the first one is gonna be expected to help with the newborn.
There you go.
My brother's 6 years older than me, and my sister's 9 years older than me. So,
right.
Yeah.
So exactly. So I feel there's some good spacing there.
I've got time then. This is good to know.
Right.
This is good to know.
Yeah.
Wait until the kid cannot die on her own, and then have another.
Oh no, that never goes away.
Weird. That's weird and dark.
That is weird and dark, but that never
steer away from that.
That never goes away.
2 things, David. What are you most anticipating coming up, either this holiday season or shortly after? Anything game-wise that you're really, really looking forward to?
Well, I want to play the new Zelda. Excited for that. I know it's already out, but I haven't gotten it yet.
Sure.
I'm cautiously optimistic about Death Stranding. I think they have released enough that I'm like, okay, I'm curious to hear what this is like, but I could see that one going either way. In terms of other than that, I mean, I'm loving the fuck out of Game Pass. I mean, I love the fact that I'm just trying so much shit right now that I never would have tried before. So I'm really enjoying just, you know, what did I just down? Let me see. I just downloaded and I'm ready to finish up Gears and get into, Bloodstained Ritual just came out on Game Pass, which is fucking crazy. And Creature in the Well. So I'm excited. You know, a lot of Game Pass.
Creature in the Well is very good.
That's what I hear. And then I'm excited to see Star Wars. You know, I'm excited for Frozen. Sure. I'm excited for Disney Plus. I'm a big fall, Christmas, holiday, Halloween guy. So
awesome.
I literally, before I got on this podcast, like 10 minutes before, I ordered a thing called a Snuggle, which is basically it's like a blanket that you
sleeves.
live in.
A Snuggie?
Sleeves and a
Snuggie.
Got one.
Fuck yeah.
Yeah, but it's not just the Snuggie. It's got like the hat or the hood, and it's like a big fucking muumuu. And I love the fall when it gets cold on the couch, and we just sit there and we just binge the fuck out of television and movies. So
sounds delightful.
It's good stuff. It's good stuff.
That's awesome.
Right, and then are you working on anything you can talk about right now?
I have been playing around with starting some new games. Honestly, right now, most of my time and passion, what I call the Jaffe stream, which is somewhat of a daily stream, but it's a stream I do on YouTube and Twitch and whatnot. Yeah. It's just fun. It's like people call in and talk, and it's kind of like it's not really a podcast, it's more like a live radio show. I'm having fun doing that.
That's awesome. That's
nice.
awesome. Cool. So if people wanted to follow you, David, where can they do that?
At davidscottjaffe on Twitter is. I'll tweet it out whenever I've got new it out. So at davidscottjaffe over on Twitter.
Dope. You can find me at Lubwub on Twitter and everywhere it's important. You can follow Nerdy Bits at nerdy_bits on Twitter and _nerdy bits on Instagram because some German account that hasn't posted in 8 years still has that. Sarge, where can people find you? They literally haven't posted since 2011. Go ahead. Sarge,
you can find me Sergeant Sodium on Twitch, Twitter, and Instagram for the most part.
Dope. Ben, where can people find you?
At Sketch Sawyer, everywhere.
Sweet. And Eric, where can people find you?
Hybrid Glass, everywhere.
Dope. David, thank you so much for being on. It was awesome.
Cool. Thanks for having me.
I hope
we
didn't annoy you at all.
It was fun. It was a lot of fun.
Awesome.
I appreciate it.
We post the podcast to watch and to listen to on our website and on YouTube on Fridays. So if you want to check it out there, anybody, go do that. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you guys next week.
Bye, everybody.
See you guys.
Cool. Thank you,
Take
guys.
care.
Talk to you later. Bye, everybody.
All right, thanks,
See you,
Dave.
bud.
See ya.
Thanks. I'm gonna leave the stream on for a second because we're God. All right.
Well, I think we handled that